Okay, the Townsend Finance Committee, and I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:01 PM. I know we're all in the room, but to keep consistent with what we've done, can we have our roll call attendance, please?
Jerome Bazika is here.
Sam Grant, aye.
Oh, Mary Jane Churchville here.
Dave Walker here.
And Chair Hofstas present.
Don Haynes here. At 6, we have a quorum. We are ready to continue. This meeting is being recorded for playback on Channel 9, and it will be available on the YouTube channel. I see just one visitor in the room who's an invited guest for the agenda. I don't see anybody on the Zoom, so at this point, there's no additional people recording the meeting. So we're good with that. At this point, this was just a short meeting to address an item for the FY26 budget and have a meeting with the town clerk. So I have nothing to add to the agenda. And that being said, we'll go into the work session, which is the town clerk had updated the election budget changes. We did record that and discuss it last week. The change from constable to hiring the police for each of the elections. Kathy, did you want to come up and speak?
Well, I just.
I can share.
I see.
How you doing?
Okay, 162 changes. I'll have to go back and make sure it didn't come up, so I'll open one more, and then we'll have to share those. I don't know why it's not sharing my screen. I have to share individual files. And today's hopefully like to unmute. We do that, we get the update. Maybe is that one muted? Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure we're getting volume. You're not hearing us? That's not unmuted.
Yeah, yours should be muted.
I
That one
am
should be
muted.
unmuted.
Yeah, I just looked and it looked like it was unmuted.
Okay.
Maybe the volume is turned down, because it can be muted, it can be unmuted and the volume may not be.
Right, yeah.
Is that up there? Is that this?
That is that, but I wanted to do Kathy's first.
So you wouldn't necessarily hear yourselves here.
No, we won't hear it, but when I unmuted mine, I get the echo.
Did the echo?
Yep. It's kind of like, so it seems like it's working. Okay, so I have the Department 162, for the elections budget up, and you had provided the change on the professional services line
Right.
Like 20.
I had to, add $800
Yeah.
to that line. We only have one election, in fiscal year 26.
It-
But previously we had constables.
Mhm.
We are no longer going to have constables after the 1st of July. So instead of paying $210
Mhm.
for a full day for a constable, the last time at the presidential election, we had to pay a police officer $1,040.
Mhm.
So I increased it by $800.
Okay,
So for each election, it's going to be to have police presence there. We're gonna have to, budget a little over $1,000 per election.
okay. Yeah,
And so an increase of $800, which
Sure.
is some people's weekly salary.
right.
Why do we change?
The selectmen changed the policy. I have no idea.
Yeah,
They wouldn't say.
they wouldn't
right?
say,
Didn't you?
we asked last week.
Yeah,
We kind
and they wouldn't
And
say.
we're in a budget crisis,
Yeah.
and they wanna do this?
Yeah, and like I say, that's my
That's-
assistant's weekly salary, almost her whole salary.
Because the constable, she's been doing this for a while.
Yeah, and before that, we had, Bill Martin was there and John Whittemore was there and Roger Bochamp was there.
They
But
were,
our constable is the one who posts all our meetings and everything. Does that mean we're gonna have a police detail post our meetings?
What I was told, they would do it on their, regular rounds.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be incorporated into their pay. Whether they get extra for doing that, I don't know. Right now, it costs, I think it's like $31.45 or something like that. To have, the constable post in 5 places around town.
So basically like $32.
Yeah,
Yeah, around,
yeah,
and that's to post 5 places.
yeah.
And
And for-
that's okay if the cops do it on their regular rounds, but
Mhm.
if you have them do it outside, you're talking
We tell a lot of money.
You're talking a lot of money.
Right, exactly,
And we don't have any money.
right. And I don't believe it costs the town anything to have a constable. To appoint constables. I don't think there's any cost there because they have to provide their own bond.
Right.
So
Well, that doesn't make sense.
I don't think it makes sense either. So I just wanted to come and explain where we are at. We always have a police presence at the presidential plus a constable.
Mhm.
Just for the
Well, that's
safety
different,
and
that's
they're
right.
patrolling outside as well as inside.
Right.
But the parole outside is basically part of their regular patrol, or is that extra?
For the presidential, it's extra because we
Okay.
have them all day, but for regular elections, they might ride through just to make sure everything is good, but that doesn't cost anything. That's just on the regular duties.
Okay.
So
Yes.
we're required to have either a constable or a police officer at the election.
But to make the change, and the selectmen just do that, or doesn't it have to go to the people?
No, it's a policy.
So they can just,
Constable's been around since the beginning of time.
But does the constable have some duties or that the police don't? Somebody told me that there was something that the constable does that the police really aren't supposed to be doing or
Is
something.
it serving papers maybe? I don't
Sure,
know.
maybe, well.
Yeah, because if you own property, say, and you wanna,
Foreclose or something. and-
Yeah.
Somebody,
yeah, if you're thinking,
Yeah,
I didn't think of the word, you
Yeah,
get
right,
someone,
yeah,
you have to serve them
it's a
papers.
servant
Yeah.
paper.
And now, from what I understand, they have to go through the sheriff's department, and I could be wrong, maybe the police
I
can
think
do
it's
that.
I think that's
I think it's
typically
the
done by the sheriff, yeah.
Yeah, but
whatever else, it's just the added cost of this
of
change that
everything, yeah,
doesn't make a
How do they
lot.
cost
I don't
$1,000 bucks?
understand in a budget crisis how this can even be discussed.
right.
And
And we're lucky-
much less passed and put into some kind of policy.
And we're lucky this year because we only have,
It's only.
as far as we know, there's only one election.
Right.
But
there's
for
only
instance,
one
last year, we had 6 elections,
Then we've been over $6,000.
yeah,
Versus,
versus 1,200.
Yeah,
And
Versus
they
1,200.
can't give us, they can't
well, she
give us
wouldn't,
the consideration of telling the people why they did it. Isn't that a bit authoritarian?
and this is what, and they want an
That's a pretty
override
darn
to
good
do.
word for it. There were other words, but that's a good one.
I mean, it's okay to ask for an override when you're being fiscally responsible,
Right,
but when this is basically fiscally irresponsible and you have no right to ask the taxpayers to pony up more money when you're,
Unless there's an explanation that.
but they won't.
It makes sense.
they wouldn't give it,
But
though.
they won't discuss it.
They wouldn't discuss it, so, wow, so, but they want us to put money up based on what they have decided, wow. Townsend,
So,
wake up, come and vote.
Yeah,
but it,
Oh,
I
I've
just
seen signs up.
wanted to continue on on the number.
Okay.
Your elections, FY 27 is gonna be 3,
so,
because FY 27 will be the fall of 26. So,
yeah, so we'll have a primary, the general
and
and the
then
annual.
April.
Yeah, and that's if there's no
Is-
other overrides or anything like that, special elections.
So that it's at least 3, but if there's an override,
Yeah, and then you're talking 3,000, over 3,000 versus a little over
Yeah.
So
600.
let me ask a question and I'm just curious, so before it was 37, now because of this change, you need to raise it to 45. What was the 37 for? Just to understand.
So the 37 is for professional services, which is the printing of the ballots.
Turning of the bill.
They program the USB drives that go into the voting machines
Okay,
and that type of thing.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious, what if the town specifically votes that line item to say, no, it has to pay at 3,700? Does that force them to go back to a constable? If they don't authorize the extra $800?
I don't know,
or it's an unattended election, and I don't think you want that.
and I don't think we're allowed to have that.
Right, no, I wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't argue that, but I'm just saying,
Right, I see what you're saying.
how do we, you know,
You mean the people ought to have a say?
right, what if the people vote and say, no, we want the constable back?
And
Yeah.
you can do that at town meeting, when the whole budget is presented, you can make recommendations on changes on lines in the budget. You have to have all your subtotals all ready and updated.
Can we do that as the FinCon?
We're an advisory board.
Right, we
Yeah, but can't we advise that? I mean, that's what
Well,
we're
we
here
can
for.
do it, we can advise a lot of things, but does any, are they gonna listen?
Well, I don't care if the selectmen listen. I care if the people
I think
listen.
the people will listen,
I think the people will
absolutely.
listen. I think we have an obligation to do that.
And again, this gets to, this is for one year in FY 26. If we're then gonna take it, as we said, there's 3 elections without anything, 3 guaranteed elections in FY 27 budget, 2 in the FY 28 and 3 in the FY 29. So, and that's why it's kind of like,
When's the president?
so FY
28.
FY 29 though, because it's in the fall.
Oh,
right, you have one in
Yeah,
the
it's
spring,
FY
the president, so you have 2, because we have the March presidential
Which is in the year before.
in the year before in
Yeah.
April, that's why the 2.
Yes,
FY 28 and FY 29 is the primary in the falls, the September
yeah, it's the
primary.
same thing,
Yeah,
is,
they are, and then the annual
yeah,
in
So
April.
they're both in 27, I
They,
mean 29.
they would be in the FY 29, even though they fall in 28, because FY 29 starts.
right,
July
because
1st to 28.
27 will have the general, yeah, it's very.
I always get messed up between the calendar and that, but
I know,
it's just one of those things, it's kind of like, because we also have to watch that other account that we're paying for elections from to make sure that there's money in there.
right, and right now, for this year,
Mhm.
I have no money left in my elections.
Mhm.
To speak of, I mean, I have a
Right.
few dollars that can
Yeah.
cover some things, but I just received the bill for the programming.
Yeah.
And, that is coming out of the special article,
Mhm. Right,
so, and so won't the,
mailing it,
the salaries.
okay, yep. Okay, so that's gonna, and I don't know what the balance in that account is, but
I think
we won't
it's,
need it for
I
next
think it's
year. but
around
the year after.
14,000 at
14,000,
this
so-
point. Yeah, after the
Okay.
bill I just submitted today, I think that's what it was.
Okay. Anybody have a question on that?
no, but I'd like to make a motion that the FinCom does not recommend this change. Even though we don't have any teeth in it, I think we should tell the people that we don't agree with this.
I agree with you. Can we make a motion?
I just
I
did.
agree.
I'll second it.
Dumbfounded me that the selectmen can get rid of the constable. Constable is the town officer from the beginning of time.
Can't remember when there wasn't a constable. I mean,
Mm.
ever.
Right,
In
we've
any-
always had
In any,
constables, and they
yeah,
use.
as far back as you wanna go.
Well, then the
Right,
arrogance of
literally
not
the beginning of time.
answering our question when we ask why. Maybe they have a good reason, but the arrogance of not answering
Giving
is,
any kind of.
you know, that tells you what they think of the people.
Mhm.
You know,
Hey, Jerry, you
Okay.
second my
So-
motion?
Did,
Okay, so Carol,
Okay, so I'm gonna read it back so you
Just
can
make
tell
sure.
me if I,
because there
Okay.
was conversation.
motion was made to recommend to keep the constable placed with police at the elections.
Yes.
that I will
Okay, and we
high
had-
for.
and we had a second.
Yeah, I got that, yeah, I just
Okay.
want,
Keep constable, throw the comment to Phil.
It's kind of like, but again, for presidential. In,
well, that's a
Well,
whole
that's a
different deal.
different-
That's a
yeah.
whole different ballgame.
is
Yeah, really.
that both the primary and the the November election?
No, it's usually just.
Just the
Yeah.
actual
just the
election?
actual,
I think we had, when the First Amendment auditors had come to town meeting, and then we had an election shortly after
Mhm,
for an override, I believe.
okay.
We had a police officer there because we weren't sure how that was gonna go,
Mhm,
and it was fine.
right, yep,
So, but it's nice to have that presence. And I mean,
right.
Chief Sartell is very good.
Mhm.
All we have to do is call him, or he'll even have them patrol
Come
through.
Yeah,
And that's great, but to have somebody there, I checked with them just to be sure, to have somebody there from 7 a.m. till 8 o'clock at night,
mhm,
it's a
Yeah.
detail and we have to pay.
right.
And rightfully so, I mean, I understand that, but
yeah.
Yep.
it's just frustrating when we're in such a tight budget.
Right.
crunch.
Trying to watch every penny and keep it,
Exactly,
This is not the time to make that change.
right. Right.
Correct.
I mean, unless there's some,
Something we don't know about, because we
right,
don't
if there's
know.
something we haven't been informed of.
Yeah, but they told us they weren't gonna tell us, so that ends that.
yeah, so we can only go on what we know.
Yeah.
And,
Correct.
are we gonna take a vote?
I was gonna say, we had a motion and a second, any additional discussion? So, if we're gonna vote on this in the affirmative, it is to recommend that, we stay with the constable as the monitor for elections going forward to help keep the cost of elections.
Under control.
Sharon Basikis, yes.
Sam Grant, aye.
Mary Jane Trexler, yes.
David Walker, yes.
Carol Huff says yes.
Don Hayes, yes, unanimous. Try that recommendation, see if we can keep.
Nice, thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
It's kinda like-
for-
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I
Appreciate
thought
your,
it was worth explaining,
yeah,
Well, we appreciate the explanation.
yeah,
And
take care of yourself.
yeah, you too, thanks.
So let me ask
Thank
you this question,
Yeah.
because we had the snowstorm the other day and they did plow the streets.
I saw when I got back in town.
Yeah, but they shouldn't have plowed the streets because you know what? They made these big balls of, I packed so at the end of my driveway, I had to chop, but anyways. So that cost some money.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
So
Lots
now
of money.
that has to be
Paid for.
however much that,
Sand and ice, whatever.
so that's
Snow
gonna
and ice.
increase our,
That's right.
this year's budget.
It will. Yeah. Yep, I suspect.
So,
Yep.
so are we gonna be having a shortfall for this year's budget? I mean,
Well, we already run it at a deficit, but I think
well, I know,
in the
I,
recap sheet, it was, I think, 350 last or 385.
it was something, but I understand because that's a must-pay bill
Mhm.
eventually.
Right.
But we just added more
We
money
just
to
added
it
another, right.
that we don't have.
That's Mother Nature for you.
Mhm.
Well, yeah,
Right, and-
yeah,
and-
and May, and we've had May storms,
Yes,
so.
right.
I guess the question
We
is,
did,
I know in before the idea was that, okay, we covered that from, year to year, we covered that from free cash.
Right.
all the free cash,
With the change, they committed
200,000
200,000 from free cash to the schools for
and
next year.
81,000 to the fire truck.
Is there any free cash left to cover the
The
shortfall?
answer would be no at this point. There were articles planned that we're gonna use free cash, so we'd have to see if what the plan and intention is for that. As a minimum, was the 1/3 of the assessors, money for Patriot, the assessing. They do an article every year to allocate $8,000 into an account, so that when we get to the year and we have to pay $25,000 for the reassessment, that it's in there, but it's level, it would have been level. If that money isn't there now, we're gonna be short when we get to,
What assessment is that?
the town has to have a full assessment, done every 3 years.
Oh, okay, yeah, the regular
The
assessment.
regular assessment is kind of like, and,
Do we know, I mean, I know. Well, that CPA tax, does that come
Oh,
into
please.
effect, July 1st? And is there a cost in implementing that? Do we know if there's a cost in implementing that
yes and
tax?
yes.
Yes, we know it's gonna go into effect, and yes, there is a cost. So it's gonna be on our
Well,
tax bill?
It,
Well, yeah,
Um,
it will be on your tax bill, yeah.
So we're paying 1% for,
1% of the tax, so you take your tax bill, take 100,000 off, and 1% of that remaining number.
Whatever it is.
so your taxes go up 3.5%, really?
Well,
No, there are exemptions that you can apply for.
I know, but if you don't qualify for it,
yeah, if you don't qualify,
well,
yeah, but your taxes are going up here.
3.5%.
Yeah, probably, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
but that was voted, that was a vote.
No, I know how
I know.
that
It's kinda like-
happened, yeah.
I
So
know.
we,
Because people
I
didn't
believe-
understand what it was.
Because people were, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the warrant for the town meeting, but I would believe that there needs to be a CPA article on either the special or the annual town meeting to set up and implement, the CPA.
Can it be revoked?
Yes, after 5 years, but it has to be 5 years. I looked.
What is the CPI? I remember it, but barely.
It's the Conservation Preservation Act. And they sold it as this thing that they're gonna do, they're gonna get all this matching funds from the state, and they're gonna do all these wonderful things with those matching funds. Well, so my next door neighbor, because he goes on the state website, and looks, and I kind of follow him. He goes, well, when it first instituted, the state matched it pretty well.
Mhm.
But he says, over the years, the state has declined on the matching,
Like the schools?
like the schools. So he
So
says,
why would we
you're
do
not,
such a foolish
so,
thing?
so you're not gonna get in 10%, so whatever you collect, there's the 3 categories, I forget, housing.
Recreation
right,
and
it's-
historic buildings.
So a minimum 10% has to go to each. So now the 70%.
But we have
you
to,
do
but
whatever.
you have to have a vote to
You have to
implement
have a
anything,
vote.
right?
Yeah.
You have to.
And what if
And it's gonna pass.
we vote that down?
You can't vote it down.
Not that,
No, the
Not-
individual projects, and say, okay, because if someone proposes a project, we have to have a vote on that.
Yeah, but
Correct.
don't we have a committee that controls that, probably. the
But-
people
No, no,
don't
no.
vote.
But
No, no, no.
10% of the dollars has to go to each of the 3
there's
categories.
there's a minimum percentage that goes to each of the categories within, that's available in
Well,
the.
will it be presented to the people to vote or the committee?
No,
It should
I-
be, it should be something from the committee, they put it together and put their recommendations and the town votes on it.
So they could say no.
They could, yes, the
Yeah,
town could say no.
I mean, I think.
And if the town says no, can that money get transferred like other
No.
transfers that
No.
we do?
No, the CPA money is.
So it'll just sit there, it'll just sit there.
It for the purpose, yeah.
And if we vote to dissolve it in 5 years, can we reclaim that money that sits there?
I don't know.
Good question, Dave.
That's a good question. When my neighbor comes back from Poland, I'm gonna tell him to go research
Figure that
that.
out.
That your
It's
neighbor?
kinda like-
Cause I mean, that might be, there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. If we don't spend this money in 5 years, we can claw it back.
No, you wouldn't, I
I
don't
don't
know that
think
you'd be
so.
able to call it back.
Well, no, I don't,
Disperse it back.
I'm not necessarily saying claw it back to the people, but claw it back to
To
the
the
town.
town.
Yeah,
And say, okay,
Put it
this
back in the
becomes,
budget.
I'm not sure, because that's a,
I doubt
the
it.
CPA.
No, we gotta find out. We don't
because
know.
I did go online, because he did tell me, he says, oh, we can rescind it. he says he thought it was a year, and I went online and I researched it, and I went back and I said, no, I found out it's 5 years, and I gave him the website. But that's a good point, was do we keep
What
the
happens
money,
to the money?
if, say we do rescind it, of course, when you go online, it says, nobody in the whole Commonwealth has ever
Ever rescinded,
rescinded
yeah,
it.
right, yeah.
But,
Yeah, well, we can be first.
but we could be first. So that's a good question. Let's see if I can.
Because I know, I do remember they said before any money can be spent, the town has to vote on the
That's-
project.
That's my
Right.
Approve the
understanding.
Yes,
project.
that's,
So if the town votes down every project,
Mhm.
right? And then at the end of the 5 years, we say, okay, let's get rid of this.
Mhm.
it
What
depends,
happens
yeah.
to that money?
That's
I
excellent.
mean, if we can claw it back to the town,
The town's portion of it, the rest of it would have to go back to the state if you didn't use it. And the state may have rules that if you don't use it in
Use it.
so long, it's kind of like, I don't know.
No,
all
their
the
portion.
sure,
He's
therefore,
talking about the town's portion, right?
Yeah,
He's talking about the
but,
town one,
Yeah,
not the
yeah.
state. Yeah.
But
well, because I'm
again,
kind of figuring the state won't give you the money
Well, of
anyway.
course,
well,
exactly.
they won't give you as much as what they
So
sold the people.
what
on,
happens if
like-
you vote for the project? The tax goes 10, and the state doesn't give us any money like they do with the schools. Are we
the,
stuck with the project?
Oh, no, I think, from what I understand from reading the CPA online, there has to be a separate account, the money goes in,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the money from the state goes in, and the money that's collected from the tax revenue
But I'm
goes in.
saying if the money from the state doesn't come.
Oh, well,
I don't think the money can get
Well,
spent until it's there,
the-
so at the time that they would propose a project, if they say, oh, this project's gonna cost $1 million, well, guess what, you only got 750,000 in there.
like,
But that's my point. If the town says, yes, we want the project and it's $1 million and we only have 750, do we have to go through with the project and come up with the money?
well, no, I wouldn't think so, because
no,
I
they,
mean,
Just like the
They haven't had-
recreation money where they spent the 125 on the fitness program. It's sitting in the barn. They need an extra money.
well, how come the Recreation Commission isn't doing a fundraiser to get that money?
You're talking to the wrong person, Carol, trust me.
I was gonna say CPA was, it's kind of like an offshoot of where we are. CPA will be coming in. Again, I believe it has to,
Wait till the
we
people see
have to set
that.
up all the bylaws for it. And that's why I say it, I expect it on a warrant in either the special or the annual.
Oh,
But
are
not,
we gonna create
not
a
in May.
bylaw for the CPA?
I do believe.
And so what if we decline to do that? Does the CPA then go away?
No.
it hasn't been established though. It's only been voted on.
Right,
But I-
to implement the 1%. Now you have to set up all the bylaws of who's on the committee, how many the committee is gonna be.
When is
what
that
the
gonna
rules
happen?
are. That's what I'm saying, that's gonna be on a warrant article on annual town
Oh, so
meeting.
you have.
But not this
committee?
town meeting coming up.
Yes,
in
there's
May.
gonna be a committee, there's a CPA committee.
Coming up meeting? What I'm,
My understanding is if you want to
Veronica's gonna
implement,
lead the charge.
if you want to implement it and
Yeah.
get it running and start collecting in July, you're gonna need a
policy, whatever it is.
policy, bylaws. It's-
Right, and that's kind of what I'm asking. Let's say the town votes down and says, no, we're not gonna establish this. Does the 1% not get implemented because we haven't set up the infrastructure to do
Then
it?
why'd they vote to have it in the first place?
They would.
Because it was.
They were told.
It was voted in, I would suspect that they would go back and rework the bylaw and present it again and see if it would be acceptable after that. So they'd get the input and they did present it once to the Board of Selectmen. I believe we were in the room. If it wasn't everybody, I was in the room when they presented to the Board of Selectmen, and it wasn't the whole committee. I was in the room when the CPA presented the bylaw. So they're working with the lawyers and they're working to present it. And my understanding is it would be presented at this town meeting.
Because my thing is, it was so long ago that it was voted on that nobody
Mhm.
even remembers that they voted for this.
It's possible.
And
yeah.
so when they not only get new tax bill
Mhm.
if the override goes, and then they get a separate line.
Yeah, separate line, yeah.
There'll be a lot of them.
Yep. Okay,
Anyways,
so that's, we went from.
Well, I guess I'd like to know what will happen if the town refuses to implement these bylaws and stuff. Does that mean the tax doesn't
You have to,
occur?
you could talk to someone who knows something for
Right.
sure, and not the person in
Yeah.
town, like a real estate or a real
Right, it's
authentic
kind of like,
person.
we have to look at it and see, can they collect it without having the bylaws in place? Because it was voted for.
Yeah, we'll look
It's
that
kinda
up and
like-
we'll
so that-
report at the next meeting. I'll be responsible for that.
Okay.
That would be a way to get around
Yeah,
by
exactly.
implementation.
Right, especially this year. You know, I can't even believe they did it, but what can I say?
House people voted it and kind of like,
well, yeah, because they were sold,
right.
and I was
Well,
at
they
one.
stacked the meetings.
Well, the other thing is, I was at the senior center when the guy came and he was from the trail.
The
The
real
rail
trail,
trail
the
guy.
ride out, yeah.
And he sold it to the senior citizens,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
challenged him. Cause he said all this stuff that I knew because I paid it in Westford, so I knew what it was.
Mhm.
And I even got up and said, no, what you're saying is not true.
You better be careful.
And,
You better be
and I
careful.
said, it's not, he was saying, oh, it's only $40 and
Yeah.
we're gonna do all this wonderful stuff. And he says, no, it's not just $40. And I says, it's a tax on my property tax. And it's not just assessing everybody $40 this year and you're never gonna see it again. And he says, goes up every year. And he's like, oh, no, it's just, and people at the election, they didn't even know, they were asking, what is this? What am I voting on? We couldn't say anything at the thing,
Polls,
at the polls.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just,
right, yeah, we can't say anything
I know.
at the polls.
Well, we can
yeah.
say stuff before they get there.
Yeah, but at the poll,
Right.
which was unfortunate, because there was a lot of people that just were so confused by the whole thing. In the way it was worded, wasn't worded very well, so.
Well,
Like
first, it
I-
wasn't worded very well for the truth.
Well, right.
The fact.
Yeah, right,
It was slanted.
yeah, just like this one, the override.
And the idea
As
of
the
you just
public,
opt
in the
out.
public schools. And I don't understand why we do this.
I
We
don't
know,
know.
we know.
I don't
And
get
it just, it boggles my mind, but anyways,
Sorry,
okay.
it's kind of like, we're coming back,
We're back, and
No,
what
back
about-
to-
okay, to the reserve fund,
Reserve fund.
okay.
Okay, now, a lot of people in the room, I think, especially all the newbies, haven't seen us use the reserve fund before. The reserve fund is the line, it was in the budget this year, $50,000.
Oh, our budget,
budget.
that dropped 10,000.
It dropped 10,000 for FY '26, which is a 20% drop. And what has been asked is, can we drop more if the override doesn't pass?
What do we use it for?
Emergencies.
The emergency. So if I go to FY '24 and bring this up, this was in the file. So
You used almost all of it.
we
Yeah.
used almost all
Yeah,
of it.
damn near all of it, right,
that
at the
was-
50 level.
Now,
So,
what's an emergency? I
It was
mean,
put up there on purpose.
okay, so if we, I worked it out. So
What did you
the
What is-
reserve fund description.
Okay.
And, in the glossary, we can find it on the webpage. Glossary of terms.
You use it if the roof leaks or the boiler.
I know, my wife said I
It's
do, I don't think I do, I
unplanned
don't
or
know.
extraordinary
Maybe.
reserve fund, an amount set aside
I'm tired
annually
of
within
this.
the budget
A
of
lot of hard
account,
work right now.
not to exceed 5%. So,
5% of what?
of the tax levy from the prior year, which means 5% of 20 million, say.
Okay.
It's kind of like, that would be the not to exceed. Well, we had it at 50,000, which is half of a percent.
Oh,
It's kind of like,
oh,
Okay.
So we dropped it to 40,000, which
Even
is
less half.
4/10. Yeah,
So
4/10
so yeah, no,
Okay.
we're not gonna drop it.
So it says, for extraordinary or unforeseen expenditures.
Okay, like a lightning strike, or,
When that was
Like the
one thing,
generator goes,
right,
or the
when the-
bathroom blacks up.
so this year, when we spent a lot of money,
Yeah.
we had an elevator repair because there was a
Oh,
safety
yeah.
issue. We came in to be inspected.
Yeah,
And we had to have the elevator upgraded. We had an alarm repair that was unplanned for at the police station. Generators died out here so that you didn't have backup. The sewer pumps went out to the septic. You
Whoops.
couldn't, yeah, whoops, both pumps went out. It's kind of like, and
Those are serious items.
those are
Mhm.
serious items.
In the same elevator.
okay.
Oh,
Well, yeah, it was a safety, it was a safety upgrade that was needed, so it wasn't not operational, it was just a safety feature that had,
okay, so can I ask a question about the, have we been asked by the selectmen to drop it?
yes. Well,
Of course.
administrative.
So I thought that there was no, cuts to, safety.
Well, it's,
Well, this is, if
um,
you look back through the past, safety.
Well, I mean,
has been there.
elevators is safety to me.
well, no,
Sewer is
they,
safety.
when they say safety, the public safety section of the budget.
It's different.
There's the public safety is
The
the section of the
fire-
budget.
Oh,
Yeah, fire
oh,
communication.
okay.
Highway.
So-
whatever.
so-
Also, safety is used in
Correct,
different
Dunkin' Donuts.
contexts
Yeah.
with this.
So, and then there were 3 deductibles for litigation in here, 10,000 apiece. We have a deductible in our litigation and they closed 3 cases.
Okay, so this
What?
FY 20, the
Mhm.
litigation.
What's that all about?
There were 3 lawsuits.
All kinds of
and they were settled.
lawsuits against the town over
In
the
that
last
year.
many
Yeah.
years.
Oh, yeah, there's tons of lawsuits over this, only because I was
I can
cleaning out
see
the
why.
files. I was cleaning the
So-
files. of
So
the-
anyway,
I can
that's
understand that,
what we used, that's what we allocated this money for, in addition to the ceiling falling over the main stairs
Oh, I
Okay.
remember.
and others. So there was a lot of activity. So that year we used 48,000 and change of the 50,000.
So we go back to litigation. Was litigation for people that do wrong
That
things?
sued the town.
Someone sued the town?
Somebody sued the town,
A
yes.
bunch of people.
And so that doesn't go to that department that got sued, the person that got
No.
sued for that department, it comes to
I
the
think
It
finance
comes to
committee?
it comes to the town, the town's,
I think somebody just sued recently for workman's comp. I think they won.
Then it comes to this
So-
reserve fund?
it doesn't always, this is the first time. So this was the first time we hit it. That was extraordinary. We didn't see it coming.
Do
So
we vote on it? Do
we have to vote on it and we have to pay it. Now, with the reduced money and these things, we maybe need to define what these extraordinary and unusual events.
Okay.
So let me ask you this, in
Yeah.
fiscal 25, what have we spent so far?
We have spent nothing so far,
Okay.
because you haven't seen one of the forms. There's a request form that comes in to transfer from the reserve fund to, we can't spend directly out of the reserve fund. We
Right.
have to transfer from the reserve fund to the account, like a maintenance and repair account to repair the alarm system.
Okay, so if we don't spend this 50,000 for FY 25,
Mhm.
so the end of the fiscal year, does it go back to the general fund?
It does, and it gets certified as free cash in the fall.
Oh, Dave, free
Okay.
cash flow.
So then,
Well,
all right, so
but it's not
So-
usable until.
for FY 26,
Mhm.
they ask you to take the $10,000 cut, but are they actually gonna, are they actually gonna give you the $40,000?
It is allocated in the budget to us, and it only comes out when when we approve.
But you're gonna
a
actually,
transfer.
you're actually gonna get it.
Well, it's in the account, in the BVA,
Okay,
you will see,
yeah, I've seen the line,
line,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
and until we transfer something out of it, it will stay at 50,000 and
It will.
40,000.
And they're asking us to go down even.
They're asking if we feel comfortable going.
That's just a budget trick, because we, as you know, a couple of years ago, we spent down there 50,000. This year, we haven't spent anything. You never know where so this is an
Right.
emergency, you know,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
a sponge to collect problems. We've got
Yeah.
problems all over the place waiting to happen. This town is a
Yeah.
couple hundred years old,
Yeah,
and a lot of our buildings go back.
and that's why I put the averages and how much we've used over the years that I've been tracking it. Prior to this, I could go back to the town accountant and ask for a report and see what the others were, but we have a 3-year history and we've basically used an average of 30,000 in that account over those 3 years.
I'd be reluctant to reduce it any more than.
I feel uncomfortable
agree.
with that.
I don't know if it was a 40, you're dropping the 40,
Right.
because it's the emergency, because it's our savings account,
Yeah.
when it goes back
We
to.
don't have any, how much money's left in like the stabilization? I mean, we've got like no money anywhere.
Stabilization is 1.1 million-ish.
Okay, ish.
Ish. It's a little more than I know that it's more than
I guess
1.1 million, but I
wouldn't want to go any more than 40,000.
okay,
Oh,
and
no,
that's why I sort of
We want to get it
I
to
didn't
50.
bring it to the whole board when I said, yeah, let's take 10,000 off, because that's where we were back in FY '23. So that was my bad. I should have brought it to everybody.
That's okay.
Okay.
We'll forgive you for the 10,000, but I don't think we should take any more hits.
No.
Because the other thing that concerned me was I did see the email from Carla to, I think it was, I don't know if it was to Nelson, I think it was to Nelson. Where's my $10,000 that they keep promising her for the recycling center?
They haven't paid it?
No,
They're not paying bills now?
well, I know I saw an email. She said, Nelson, where's my $10,000 for the recycling center? When are you gonna pay me?
Whoops.
So.
So is that 10,000 going to the, is that where that's going?
No. Yeah. So we-
I mean, I don't know if they
We know.
paid it since, but it's like, I'm concerned that there's a $10,000. I mean, we keep robbing Peter to pay Paul,
Yeah.
and it's like, no,
it's right.
and I know that they made promises, and maybe it's some of the I think it was the trash meetings, they were
Okay,
She
so
would-
it was something to do with the
trash,
trash.
yeah, and that's probably why I got all the emails, because I was
Oh, trash person.
And there was something in that meeting about the receipts and all this stuff, and she said,
It was.
and, she specifically said about the $10,000, which I thought she had already gotten, but it was an email that I got like, I think the end of last week.
So,
Okay.
are they taking that $10,000 and giving it to her?
Well, I think she was supposed to get $10,000 from the bag receipts from the recycling center or something, because she gave up, I forget what it was, but I know at the trash meeting, she gave up something
Well, those were
with the
overtime.
promise of getting
Okay.
the $10,000
Okay, so
back.
it might have been the purple bags were the overflow bags.
Maybe that was it, or
And
something.
before pay as you throw.
Yeah.
And everybody had to use purple bags. So they were probably had done some calculations about how much revenue they had for overflow
But
bags.
don't they get paid for those immediately?
Yeah,
Okay,
but
no, okay, so all of that revenue no longer goes to Board of Health. When it was only used for overflow bags,
Mhm.
all of that revenue for overflow bags went to Board of Health
Okay,
in the recycling fund. Now it doesn't go there. So some of the money that they had used from the overflow bags helped pay for, it sounds like it helped pay for the operation of the recycling center.
You ever did it?
I,
You know,
it-
there's a lot of like unknowns, and they keep moving money from line item up and down and taking money away and putting money back. You know, do you think it's time for a real forensic audit? I mean, a real forensic audit, not
an independent audit.
a forensic audit, which means.
We
they're
have that
looking for
every year, right?
No, not
We do.
forensic. Forensic is that you look for specific illegal items that are happening. And I'm not saying that they're doing anything illegal, I just don't have a lot of confidence in it.
I don't either. I would,
okay, so we need to get clarity on that item before.
I'll have to look at the email again, but maybe she got the money from him. I mean, because it was like a week ago, so.
but where did he get it from?
It could have been.
Would have been from the bag receipts.
From
most
the
likely.
bag receipts,
Receipts or
because the
something.
bag receipts are going into the general fund. And so they,
Who takes care of that? I mean, how does it get from Hannaford's to, or McNabb's to, how does it
Carla?
work?
okay, no.
So it
no,
goes
no.
to, from what I remember, they said So
Goes to the
the
bank.
stores get paid for the bags.
Mhm.
They send the money to the company that made and supplied the bags. So the company that made and supplied the bag says, here, I gave you this many bags this month, you owe me this money, this much for those bags. So the store sends the money to that company,
Yeah,
and that company then sends the check to us that says, this is how much came in for the bag, we took out our cut, and the rest comes to the town, and they,
I think that's how
Cut the
it's
town a
done,
check.
yeah, I think that's how it's
Yeah,
done.
so Waste Zero is gets the order for the bag from all of the retailers. They receive the money, from the retailers
wow,
for the bags. It's kind of like then Waste Zero.
that's a lot of work for the retailers. I mean, I know, I understand that it gets them in the store and they buy more stuff. I get that, but still.
For $0.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh, I was at Walgreens today, Walgreens is selling purple bags.
Oh, yeah.
They
Yeah,
are.
they have a
saw
sign in
the
their
sign
window,
up.
we
Yep.
now have
Oh,
purple bags.
oh.
So yes.
Where's Walgreens?
Down to
That-
Down by-
Down at the harbor?
Yeah,
Uniform.
The Harbor
Yeah,
Mall.
okay.
So yeah, there's more retailers with the bags, and that is the process, and that's how the money was going when it was paid, when it was only overflow bags.
Mm.
So all that they did was expand the program to every bag, which was just more money transferring between the retailers and Waste Zero, and then Waste Zero was still transferring to us.
Can we go back and
Seems
make
like
a
there's a lot of
motion to do that
steps in
vote?
between there.
Wait, yeah, we need to go back on that, but before we do, I will also,
Reserve fund.
the reserve fund, it's kind of like,
We
we're
didn't vote.
gonna make a motion.
Oh, to reduce,
Not
to not
to reduce
reduce it.
Oh, okay.
any further.
Yeah, it's an important,
Reducing it
I mean,
20%,
Yeah.
and looking at the averages, we were at 30,000 a year on the years we've used it, so we're not comfortable.
Yeah.
I
Going
mean,
any more.
remember, every year it's shrinking just by the fact that what needs to be repaired next year costs more than having it repaired last year.
Yep,
And then we don't have the
Number-
money to
number-
fix it this year.
Number
Yeah,
one, and
that's
then,
one of the reasons we worked very hard to get it to 50 from wherever low it was. Like you said, it's 0.5% of the receipts, it's only used for, emergencies, and if you happen to get through a year without it, we get the money back into the town, and then a different 50,000 is, given to us at the next town annual
40,000.
meeting, and
yeah.
Oh, you mean it will always be 40,000?
no,
Oh.
it's kind of like, this year it's gonna be 40,000
Right.
because we dropped it, so yes, we've gone back
I'm
to,
somewhat.
So normally it was
comfortable with
50, right?
Hmm?
Normally it was 50.
it was 40,000 for FY 22 and 23, it went to 50,000 in FY 24.
Right.
So that was the first time we had gotten the increase. And again, it's based on the budget is getting bigger.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, so every year the budget gets bigger, this amount, if we don't increase it, gets smaller. So, and I don't always like the comparisons, but I look at the other towns, they have 150,000 in the reserve.
Oh, my,
Now, that I would love to have that kind of
yes.
money,
I think we
because
did it one
that
time.
tells me there's if you have a real $40,000 isn't gonna cover
We'll
what I
cover a
would,
roof.
yeah,
No,
it's kind of like,
Or-
it might
or
cover,
furnace.
if you have an emergency to patch a big roof. It's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like,
Okay, I'll make
So-
the motion. I'll make the motion.
yeah, sorry, it's kind of like, I can go all day and.
Okay, go
why I
ahead.
think
Okay,
it's
I make a motion that the finance committee does not drop the reserve fund any further
If the,
than 40,000.
if the override doesn't pass.
No,
Oh,
period.
anyway, no matter
Yeah.
what.
No, it's still
Okay.
too low at 40,
well, it's already at 40, so.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But not below 40.
We pushed, that's why we wanted it up to 50, was a theoretically eventually to push it a little higher, to make sure that it's there for those emergencies.
For the real emergencies, and again, we'll talk with that. Now, the other one, we have the dues and memberships line at $750. This year, we used about 500. We paid for our dues and we paid for the manuals.
How much are the dues?
The dues were 196 this year.
So they're asking us to take,
No, I'm just throwing that out because that's the only other line we have in our budget.
oh,
We have two lines, dues and membership, but nobody has taken classes, gone to seminars or anything else.
Right.
So, if,
but I think that we should keep that because the three of us at least are new.
Mhm.
I mean, if there's something we would like to go to, I think it should be available.
Well, I think,
Particularly knowing what we're up against with the other
Mhm.
side of it
but
too.
it's always good to keep up with what's been
Absolutely.
changing and going
Yeah.
on.
The DOS has a
Probably
lot
should
of
be.
good stuff.
Yeah, they
There
do
was,
have a lot of
A
stuff.
lot,
on.
but.
There was an
what-
annual something or other down in Worcester at the college there.
We used to
Yeah,
go.
Yeah,
Um,
and, it was very,
Down
let me put it this
the
way, I came out with 10% and stuck in my head, trying to figure out what the other 90% was they talked about. And then I went back the next year, so
Mhm.
the bucket, the brain started to
Very
fill.
important.
I think say we should be attending things
I
like
do
that.
too.
Yeah,
I do
okay,
too.
well, we'll look at the MMA schedule,
Mhm.
and
Pick
see, I
something.
know the annual was in November.
Oh,
Well, I
good.
think, you know, the, go ahead, I'm
Big
sorry.
meeting, yeah, no, it's kind of like, so the annual meeting is the first couple of weeks in November usually, if I recall. Usually it's down around Sharon or something like that, so we'll, the long ride,
Sharon.
Sharon, Mass.
It's a long ride, but
Mhm.
I think you get more out of it in person than you do looking at. the TV
Absolutely.
screen.
Right.
100%. Plus you meet other people and you
Yeah.
exchange
I
ideas.
remember half of that 10% definitely came from shooting a bull outside the meeting itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what,
Yeah,
yeah,
well, that's-
We're down at Holy Cross, we went.
that one.
And you.
Did anybody second to
Oh,
second?
Not yet.
Okay, Dave.
Dave,
No, I said not yet, but yeah, sure, I'll second.
Okay.
It's his turn.
Okay, sorry, it's kind of like we keep on.
Especially if things are gonna get harder.
Right,
You know, as the winter's gonna get deeper and deeper and deeper, we really need to get deeper and deeper.
Good
Mhm.
point. Good point.
okay, so we had a motion to not,
I said,
yeah,
a motion for the finance committee not to reduce the reserve fund any further.
Correct.
so,
Yep.
roll call vote in the affirmative is to keep it at the 40,000,
Yes,
which is 20% lower than asked for.
that's for on purpose.
Yeah.
Not much, it's not like we're going to go out and buy something with it.
Nope.
We are only there holding a special fund for those emergencies that I mean, all maintenance funds should always be set up to anticipate some emergencies.
Mhm.
But there's a point to which that, you know, and they have a real emergency and that's when they come to us.
Right.
And that's.
And then we transfer it to their emergency fund or wherever they were.
Mhm.
So they don't even go, we don't even pay for it. We just transfer that money over to them.
Well, I'm definitely gonna vote. Gerald Mazikas, yes, but then I have a question.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
okay, you wanna go around and vote?
You want to vote on that?
Okay,
And then-
yes.
Well, is the question in
In-
pertaining to the motion? Because if it does, we should.
Okay,
Okay,
well,
go
we're
ahead.
gonna go with Rick. Can we be overridden by the selectmen on this particular vote?
I don't believe so. It's kind of like they've asked us and we're saying, no, we don't want to go any lower, especially this year with all the cuts. everywhere.
If the override doesn't pass.
If the override doesn't pass, we have given up 20% and we don't feel comfortable giving up more than.
All right,
That's very fair. I think
okay,
that's very fair.
I think that's fair.
Let's start all the machines down and they won't break.
I need to start again. Gerald Mazikas,
Yeah,
yes.
okay,
I,
Mary Jane Churchville, yes.
Dave Walker, yes.
Carol Hoff says yes.
Don Hayes, yes. Unanimous, we unfortunately don't feel there's any more we can offer. Because we're trying to protect the town.
yes,
Yeah.
Yes, we're being fiscally responsible.
it is a lot.
Yeah.
For a town this size, that's a heck of a low amount of money to have for that emergency that we can't plan, there's no way to plan on.
No,
For
no.
a $20 million budget, and that's low, it's a $28 million budget.
Yeah.
But the levy is where we have to get it, and then the levy is 20
Well,
million.
We
So,
have the final
For
budget.
my purposes, I have a
No,
tendency to look at the
they
entire
have-
physical structure.
The only budget that I saw was the omnibus budget posted on the website. So if,
Was that the one that was so little you couldn't see it?
yeah, you have to blow it up, so.
So there's been no
Okay.
further.
So there's been a tiny bit of movement. Let me go to the omnibus and I apologize, it's kind of like this.
Is the omnibus posted as a PDF or as a?
It's a PDF.
Okay.
So I had time to kill, so I looked at the total budget, and the total budget was different than we had. And then, so I went section by section, identifying the ones that had changed. And so I went in and I marked up the omnibus
That you had in Excel?
that I had in Excel
Okay.
with the changes that I could find, and
Could you tell us what lines those are, please?
yeah, that's where, if I get to my right file, and this one is not it, I don't think. Yeah, 415, this should be, so I'll go back up to the top. Okay.
Okay, this is the file that we were talking about over with last week, right?
This is
Okay.
last week's file. You'll see on the very top, it's hard to see. I put
If you
it, I
say
put
what
the
number it
dates,
is.
I put the dates on
Uh-huh.
the top, so
Yeah.
it says omnibus budget FY 26 override version 20415.
Version 2 or version 3?
Yeah. The last one that was given me was version 2,
Okay.
which,
What number are you at? I can't
Um,
see what those numbers are.
okay, so,
If you just say what line you're on.
okay, so I'm gonna filter on reds because I highlighted the lines that were different.
Okay.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
first line that's different in the budget is line 120. The
120.
the town clerk wages operating staff.
Okay. Okay, what is that now?
Okay, it is 27,715.
So they reduced it by
19,000. Now, the 19,000 in their notes says it's coming from ARPA. So this is still truly a 46,719 line. They're just using it from invisible funds, or not visible in the budget.
How does it come from ARPA?
They will open up the project with the company that opens the projects for us and say that they want to use it for wages and assign it for the town clerk wages.
I thought ARPA
The
was
town
done.
clerk assistant.
I thought the
Yeah.
ARPA funds were all
Yeah.
done with. I thought they used all the ARPA funds to balance the budget at the end of the other.
There were two items left in the budget. There was the unused funds for the community outreach
Right,
for this year, the FY 25 numbers. And then there was also for the
That's it.
human services. You want it bigger? Let me make it bigger.
Well, they just let the kitchen lady
I
go.
probably still have to walk up anyway, so.
So she's done at the end of June, but they didn't let the HR lady go.
They did?
They, or
Well,
did
they
they?
should.
They should, but I don't know they have
We,
now.
we sent our recommendation in.
Yeah,
We did.
Yeah,
yeah, we did.
I don't copy everybody on those emails,
That's
but
right.
where Carol
Yeah.
is,
Yeah, I saw that you sent the
Secretary.
email with the four motions that we made. The one was the HR, there was the four motions we made that day. One was the HR person.
Right.
one
Yeah,
was
but-
the community, one was the pay as you throw.
Yeah,
back,
not to fill
and-
the community. Remember, we said we don't want that.
Position
community
filled, yeah.
Yeah,
Right. And so this line, if you take line 120 and go back to the PDF, you'll see the note that says $19,000
Okay.
is being funded with ARPA. So it's a change in here, but it really is not a change. It's still a
Right.
46,000. When you
Right.
get to FY 27, you
It'll-
need 40,
Yeah,
and.
you still need the
Alright,
46.
750.
and all the other lines were police lines that went up. That's not a good
What
thing.
numbers went up?
Okay,
Where are we
so
now?
if we go to line 258, the police salary and wage.
No, what? How is it that they go up?
Well, because they're gonna take over the constable's job.
No, they would, no, this is about, I believe, they're doing their police contract right now. They're negotiating the police
Well, you
contract.
know, that's another thing.
That's,
I really feel very, I don't have a lot of confidence in them negotiating with
anything,
with the unions. I mean, Lori Schifrin said right at the meeting that she was not qualified, so that takes care of her. Nelson didn't want to do it.
Yeah,
And Veronica's had her finger in it for the past 6 years.
Oh, yeah,
I think we need a real
plus,
municipal
A
negotiator.
negotiator.
and the other thing is, where's the attorney in all of this? Because those two contracts that expire in June that automatically renew, if nobody says anything, what attorney lets that go? I mean, go
Probably someone
through.
who does what he's told.
I don't know.
how attorneys.
I mean, I love my cops, but,
Yeah, but, yeah,
sometimes I've heard through different people that we're overstaffed for the size of our town.
Well,
I don't know if that's true or not.
I think that's something we should probably look into as the finance committee. Are we overstaffed
That's-
based on our population and our call records? I mean, how many rapes, murders, robberies? You know, I have
No,
that
but
never changed.
it's kind of,
When that ever changed
that
too.
number changed to
all I know is I drive into town and I see
979,000,
two cop cars pulling a car over.
979,000.
979,317.
So that's $75,000 increase.
Yeah. just
70,
about.
yeah, 75 and change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're asking us to cut our savings budget, emergency budget? Come on.
Right.
Okay, and
So is that a new position?
I don't necessarily believe so, but it could be that it's the officers that were in training or coming in.
Oh, they
The
came
ones
in.
from the academy
The ones
that
from
they
the
were,
academies,
might be
yeah.
How many is that? Is that
three? I think it was three.
Three.
Three?
I thought that was already in the budget when we looked at it.
Yeah, I thought
earlier.
that too, to be honest with you, but.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And
Yeah,
well, I'm sure.
and that's why it
Yeah.
could be, you know, we'll go back and question it. If we see the changes, this is the first time.
Okay,
You know, I saw him this morning because, like I said, I looked at the file, line 263, the police additional gross holiday.
Where is it now?
what is it called? The gross holiday?
Holiday,
Gross
must
holiday.
be holiday pay or
Yep,
something.
holiday pay.
Okay.
It is increasing to 42,779, so that's an increase of $579.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, that's not much. That's, that.
900.
Line 264, police other stipend longevity
Mhm.
is increasing to 9,500. So that's an additional 750.
Mhm, okay.
Okay.
Line 265, police other stipends, the,
You know,
well, it says Quinn bill, but as we've heard, the Quinn bill
okay.
is just a name they put on the account that is stuck, the Quinn bill is. But that is going to 125,983.
Okay.
So that's an increase of 8,032.
And do we know why?
I don't, it was something I found this morning. I haven't gotten any of this to ask. I suppose I can go to the chief and ask.
Yeah.
The next one is line 266,
Okay.
police other uniform allowance.
Mhm.
It is going to 20,200, which is an additional 1,200.
I could close myself in a decade, it's a real old thing.
So you're a boost.
And then one final change. Line 378, the communication center, other services,
Mhm.
that is reducing to 277,993,
278?
277.
Are these custom tailored uniforms?
277. And what's it going to?
No, that's what it's going to. It was 283.
It was
So it's
277,
277,993.
993.
So it's reduced?
It's reduced by about 6,000.
And do we know why it's
And
reduced?
that's in 277?
I don't, the only note said, per direction of the chief.
You know,
Line 277?
Line
378.
Oh, 378.
so I just want to go back there. When we went over the first time.
Yeah.
We were told, oh, can't cut any of that. Now all of a sudden we can?
Well, if they've got their assessment from the community,
Oh, from the communication people.
right, yeah.
I see,
You
okay.
know, so that may have been a first cut, first estimate, and
I get
they're
it.
getting,
Could I have that number again, please?
okay, so it's going to be $277,993.
That's a reduction on.
That's a reduction
I
of
see.
about,
So that's like a pass through. Is that like a pass?
that's a pat, yeah, yeah.
What else?
That's all, that's all.
Oh, that's it?
That's all the changes I was able to find.
Oh.
Now, in the bottom, when it gets to the bottom line, my number matched with the number that was on that PDF file.
Okay.
So by doing these changes, bottom line, everything matched.
Matched.
Okay, so how much did we gain and how much did we lose?
Oh my
So we gained about
goodness.
100,000.
How did it, what do you mean?
I mean, what increase?
We increased, we increased at least.
Well, let me.
So the
Right.
75, he'll do the math.
Yeah, I'll do
Yeah.
it
But
again.
though you're pretty good at math.
I know, it is.
Yeah, you're really good at math.
I'm terrible at math.
I have that paper
So we
and
increased.
it takes me a few
Oh,
minutes.
it's definitely an increase. Well, I don't know what, the 979 was an increase of 100,000, wasn't it?
Well, we had those $75,000 increase and then there was a couple of little, another 1,000, and then there was a couple of hundred.
So,
And then there's $6,000 decrease, so.
So total increase is.
Okay, so the total. Okay, so I did that, right. Okay, so let me. Okay, so,
You can manipulate the cells and come up with the figure.
yep, I can,
I know you can.
um,
Once upon a time, I could do that too, but
yeah.
been too many years since I've had to manipulate cells.
And again, it's not manipulating, it's using a formula called subtotal, so
Yeah.
everything that you've.
Well, yeah, if you,
If you filter it, it will give you totals for just.
yeah, if you fill the cells in with the right formulas, then you can easily manipulate the cells and you
Yeah,
can make
if I
it
had-
do.
so what was it?
Okay, so it is a total increase of 61,621.
Can you say that again?
61,621.
What's the total?
That's the total, that's the net total.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, so there's minus in the.
There's a
Yeah,
couple of
there's a
there's a
minuses.
couple of minuses
Yeah.
and the pluses, so
Yeah.
it's kind
So
of.
from the budget that we originally had, it
Mhm.
increased 61,621.
So that's not going down, is it?
No, not going down at all.
so are they even asking enough money for the override?
Well, that's
They're
to be
probably
determined.
working on that right as we speak.
If they
It's
go
starting
for,
at 6
if
o'clock.
they go for another override, because they can't change it, right?
Right, they can't change it.
No, they have to live with it.
We
They-
have to,
So
If they're lucky to get it, if they get it at all, they have to live with it.
the ballot is printed with the number, so that's the number they're trying to get to.
so now let me ask you, is it 640 or 625?
The ballot says 625.
That's the ask, for
Yes,
the override is
That's the
625.
yes.
That,
It's gonna be it.
And the answer
So
is
why do
no.
they keep telling us it's 640?
no, okay, so let me, I'll pull up the recap sheet and we can go over that piece, so let me get,
640 is-
let me filter on the bottom, so we can see the bottom.
Oh, maybe it's not even real.
Well, maybe, it could be any number, we have no idea, it could be anything. I mean, how you don't know? 15 days before you have to vote on it.
It
You know,
is
my
still-
brain is still working on the trash.
Please don't bring that up.
Yeah,
Lauren and I
please,
won't
trash.
We'll be here till midnight just on trash.
I won't be there, so you don't have to worry about
Oh,
it.
yay.
Well, I'm gonna say,
I don't want, I don't
you
want-
remember,
We're gonna make sure-
yeah,
Well, I mean, she kind of explained it. And she explained why she felt the fee was better than increasing the price. And she said that's based on the experience that she's had with other towns that are doing this program. So I'm gonna take her at her word because she's trying to figure out how do we preserve the trash program, and she felt that the fee is better than increasing the price on the bags. Okay,
Fee plus bags?
yeah,
Yeah.
keeping the bag cost as it is and adding a fee rather than increasing the cost of the bags.
Except now.
She felt was the better
I like
solution.
that. Because I think the fee was gonna be assessed to everyone, whether they.
Use the dress or
So that
not.
would have been real popular.
No, I think she said it was only,
No, I
No,
thought
no,
they
they
said
changed
it's gonna be assessed to everyone,
Yeah.
whether you use the trash. or
I
not.
think that was one of the versions. I thought what was presented by Irene at the meeting was they're gonna come with a sticker for the people to pay
Oh,
the
God,
fee.
yes, the
The
stickers.
sticker. You
Oh,
got-
and then you have, and, yeah, and you know what, you're gonna drive people crazy because actually, after Irene said about, well, a lot of people don't have barrels, they just put the purple bags out.
Right.
And you know what, when I was driving through, or walking, I guess, walking through
Mhm.
Tivoli Park,
That's right.
because I never really noticed. I mean, I never paid attention, so I paid attention. There's a lot of people don't have,
Those totes.
I, no, I
They
put out a
don't have-
purple bag because the shape of the bag doesn't fit in my barrel.
Right.
but she's saying you gotta have a barrel to put the sticker on.
But the barrel's gonna
Right.
cost $150.
And it's like, you know what, I'm so.
you have to buy the barrel from them though.
Yeah, no.
Oh, you have to buy from?
No, I said you
No,
don't have
at Sam's, they're like $200. I mean,
So,
'cause I went down to buy
yeah, it's
recycled.
Oh, yeah, because she was going on about the stupid sticker and I was ready to shoot myself. Maybe
it
shoot
was-
her.
It was like, we don't know how to affix it. There's,
Yeah, it was, she
And
was
the
going
whole-
on about
yeah, how do
the.
you-
the
Well,
sticker and how
yeah, I
do you
mean-
fix it? And then, you know, you gotta tell them, and are they even gonna pay attention? Those guys, they're coming along and they're dumping this stuff. They're not looking at the
and
stupid.
that's why she said. it had to
Oh,
be-
you don't know about the day I brought my trash up to Nelson.
Oh,
Did you?
I absolutely did. Yes,
Good
I
for
did.
you.
Because this whole, he said, she said, this, they, them, I said, "I'm taking it up to ship, you never came and got it." My sister had a big argument with people at the Board of Health about the trash, because they told her she was wrong, that they did pick it up. It was a nightmare. I can only imagine that it's gonna get worse.
did you leave it here?
No, I brought it, I didn't leave it here. I brought it up to his office and
Well, that was a good thing, because when I lived in Westford, I got an email threatening, it went out to the whole town. But it basically threatened that if you didn't put your recycling out, you wouldn't get your trash picked up. And I said, well, sometimes I don't sometimes I just walk out, because my driveway was very steep and I couldn't get up because my barrels were at the thing. And I would just take like the kitchen bag and just watch the truck and drop it out, and I wouldn't put the things out. So I said, I'm a senior citizen, my drive is extremely icy and I can't always get up there. And she comes back and says, well, I suggest you hire somebody to take your trash up there.
oh my God.
So you know what I did? I went to the town administrator of Westford and I said, if my trash is not getting picked up, it's gonna be on your front steps.
There you go.
And it's like, and I said, it better be picked up.
And did it?
We have
Oh,
it.
yeah, and he was like, oh, that should have gone out to everybody. And I said, I showed him the email and I said, and this is a town person? And she's saying this stuff. I'm like,
It's-
We
So-
always have recycling, we just don't always have trash,
it's kind of-
you know.
I sometimes don't have
Especially
it
to
either.
do that. It comes on with these
It's
big
amazing
clear
how much it
plastic
reduces when the
lettuce
kids move out.
containers.
well,
There's no way to compact them, you can't jump on them, you can't do anything to break them down. So I guess putting out a lot of air.
yeah, I just put my stuff on every other week. Oh,
Let's not talk about
Okay,
that.
yeah, hey, I was gonna say trash is.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I'm sure it would be.
Thank you for the update, I appreciate what I've heard here, because I had to miss the last event.
So it kind of, and so I just filtered, so. it's
Glad I
kinda like
brought it up, even though I was stepping into a.
The new,
And a pile of trash.
Good for you, Barry, and I applaud you.
I'm on a roll now.
Remind
I'm
me, I
old
have to
enough
do that
here.
one.
yeah, so the new total amount for the budget is $28,971,073.
$171,
Yeah, 28,971,073.
and they haven't negotiated the contracts right, so it could still go up.
Well,
Or are
the
they trying to
contract.
negotiate down?
Well, the contracts
The
don't
union
end,
people.
Oh.
the union
people.
contracts don't end
Okay,
until
that-
next
They all
year.
get $8.50 for clothing allowance.
Oh, next
Yeah,
year.
it's
Oh.
26 is when
Well,
the
then
union contracts.
what's this big talk about they're gonna negotiate? What are they gonna negotiate?
Oh, I think you said the
That-
police.
No, yeah, so we have,
Well, the
we have,
town employees contracts,
so,
being the police.
yeah, so the police is up, we have 5 unions, the police is up now, everybody, the other 4 unions are next year. They told us, I believe they told us that last week.
Yeah, that's what Nelson said
So
last
this
week.
is it. So this is what everybody was worried about, the negotiations for the town, or is this not?
No, that, I think what you're thinking about with the negotiation of the town, if the override doesn't pass, then there has to be negotiation.
Right, that's what I am
with the-
talking about. You're right.
So, yeah, that's not what we were just talking about. We're talking about renegotiating a police union contract.
Oh, you mean because it came up?
Because
it
At
came
this
up, it was-
point.
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
standard,
all right,
standard.
I get it,
Yeah.
I
Are they in
get
the
it.
midst of that now, or are they waiting until after the town meeting?
How are you waiting?
I would assume they're in judging from, we have updated numbers.
It
with-
depends when the contract actually ends. They may not be.
Yeah.
Well, they said
ready.
they said it was, the contract, the current contract ends June 30th
30th.
at the end of the fiscal year.
So
So-
they're probably in negotiations now
Yeah.
because you want to have
Well,
it
they
in
should
place.
be.
Yeah, because they're gonna have it signed by you.
So does this
Yeah.
61,621 bump up to 625?
It can't bump up to 625. The 625 is a number that's printed on the ballot and that can't change.
How are they gonna pay the?
Well,
They-
because after, if the, say the override does pass.
I wanna say the override's not gonna
Well,
pass.
I don't think it
I'm
is.
waiting for the reality to set in,
But-
and what happens?
But just say for argument's sake,
Okay,
it passes at the 625, because that's what the ballot
Right.
question is.
good.
Well, okay, so now they probably still don't have enough money. And they're gonna this is my thinking, that they're gonna turn around and, oh, by the way, we have to have
But
another.
are they backing into this number? Are they trying to?
They're not necessarily trying to back into the number. Let me get the recap sheet open and then share
It
that.
just doesn't give me a feeling of confidence.
Have you ever had a feeling of confidence since you've been here?
No, not in this room, not with this issue.
Have you had any confidence in the budget?
Well, the
Being
first couple
realistic.
meetings, I really enjoyed them and
Well,
I
yes.
liked learning stuff. But then when I found out what was supposed to be done,
But
I'm gassed.
do you have any confidence in the budget being accurate?
No, none whatsoever. Absolutely not, none.
Or that
whatsoever.
Nelson's gonna be able to,
Yeah,
if he's
none.
asked about figures tomorrow, that he's not like,
No, it's gonna be all dog and pony show.
it's all gonna be, and he's gonna be like, oh, what, he'll just put numbers out of his hair until somebody like Don Priest or somebody else.
Doesn't have any hair.
Well, that's
It's a
true.
different way.
That's true. What, I mean, the signs are up until, I've seen signs over vote no for the override.
Yeah, they were.
And I talked to some guy today that I haven't talked to forever, and he was like, oh, that override, that can't pass. Nice.
Well, Carol, it could have passed, I think, if it was done correctly and we knew the number before, but this idea, they're not looking real good.
Well,
They're not looking real knowledgeable.
But they mislead you by putting the words public schools in the.
Well, that's a whole other story.
Right.
They still don't have the number regardless of the
Well,
public schools being in or not.
I know, they still don't have the number, and
I think part of the problem is the fact that the select board turned over, because this year we should be starting the budget process in like October rather than waiting till January.
I say September,
Yeah, okay.
day,
fine.
minute. I mean,
I don't have. a
You're
problem with
right, though.
September.
oh, you're what?
I said, I don't have a problem with
No,
September
but you're
instead.
right, right, the idea of waiting until the end of the year and, but I'm not so sure.
Don, and when is the budget process typically started in history?
December, the town administrator sends out to the department heads the request.
Okay, so we were
That's
consistent
correct.
this year with what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
So let's start in August. Send the letter out in August.
Yeah,
so we
well-
can start looking at it in September.
Yeah.
Right, and this year is gonna be critical because most town hall budgets were cut on the expenses for sure. It's kind of like everybody came back and tried to cut more, and so they're gonna be running
Everybody.
awful lean in town hall. Because
Well, the other thing is, I received apparently some towns are on top of this. They have these bound books of the budget that they give out, like in the month of April, prior to their town meeting. Townsend used to do that.
We had them, I can remember them.
And Kathy actually gave me 3 of them. I forgot to bring them tonight. But I wanna know why we're not getting those. Why are those not done anymore?
I mean,
I don't know, they were
probably,
great.
probably because there's an expense to it. I mean,
they,
that can't be
They don't even
cheap.
have a number though.
right, the budget is not firm enough to print and bind at this point. You can't, you don't have anything to bind at this point. The
What I'm,
omnibus that was posted is different than what we had last week, so
I mean,
that
you're
means
right.
it changed over the weekend.
Yeah.
Or maybe Friday, but even still, that means
Changed the week before.
yeah, and it may change again. It's kind
It
of,
will
It could change an hour before
Right,
town meeting
so-
to the
Well,
day
Veronica made that very clear, that their obligation is to
tomorrow
give
night?
it to us before the
of
town
town
meeting.
meeting.
Oh, tell me, the basics.
We had them come in an hour
6th.
before town meeting and say, here's your new budget.
Oh, I
Well,
believe that.
I
A little
think we
change after town meeting.
But Jerry, that's not right.
No, it's not. Are
And
you
I-
kidding me?
I think we should be prepared for that, and I think that we should recommend to the town that it not be voted if we're not getting it until now or before. Because how the heck can we recommend anything if we only
can't.
see it as now or before?
one of the main things that we usually do with the finance committee is go through the budget and recommend and not recommend. We haven't seen anything firm enough that is in place that we can actually take votes on because it's still changing.
So when does that stop and we do our job and recommend or not recommend?
Well, if we go back and look at the bylaws and the process, if we didn't have a firm budget, we're supposed to go back to last year's budget, and just use those numbers and pass them forward.
Why don't they just do that then? See if they can't.
probably higher.
It's probably higher.
Well, it could be higher than,
Well, we have.
Well, do we know what that number is?
let me get to the bottom.
Fiscal 25, this printout that I have said it was 27,456,000 for the operating budget.
Yep, it does.
Well, that's lower than the 28, right?
It's lower than the 28.
28, then why don't we just go back to
This
that?
format.
But see, that's the schools, and the schools have. schools have-
Excluding the schools, but to make the average department, whether it's police, fire,
Mhm.
the highway, there's no reason why they can't have a format, not this particular page, I'm just pulling this out. It's, that has every line item they need. And if they don't need that line
No,
item,
they don't get it.
then they just leave it blank. Because obviously the town clerk needs different things than the, whatever, the
Yeah,
police
what-
department.
yeah.
But, so that line doesn't get filled in.
Yep,
And therefore, when we get it,
yep,
we have an idea of everything with a space over here to make the questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you asking for more money? Why aren't you asking for less? Why are you asking for the same? You should be asking for less. For the police department uniform. I don't understand why you need that much money for a uniform. I had my Civil War Special U.S. Grant uniforms handmade for a heck of a better price than that, and they were expensive. So, I mean, what, are these hand tailored, you go in for a fitting every couple of weeks to make sure that it fits
maybe,
just right?
maybe the patch, maybe the uniform's the same and the patch costs the money.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, patches are reasonably priced, you can get them one off.
So that's less. So, you're saying the 20, no, the school is in the 28,971,000.
It is, but if
Right, but it's higher than it was last year.
last year.
Because the schools were.
So-
But that doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah.
the number is the number.
Yeah,
Like trying to blame it on the school, blame it on the
Right.
No,
general.
I'm not blaming it.
Right,
I'm
that's the wrong
saying,
word, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to say, if we're trying to compare apples to apples, year over year, I would take the school budget from this year, add the difference into last year's total budget to come out with an equivalent total budget. Because we know what the schools are. The schools have been consistent.
Oh, you mean because these schools can't change, right?
Right.
Well, I think
So-
we have to take a stand, because if we're not gonna get this thing until the now or before, there's no way I would just tell the people, they're crazy to vote on it.
You're on your own. Yeah, it's kind of like,
You're on your own, yeah, I mean, you
it's kind of
know,
like we have no recommendation because
And that's
we can't
happened,
even see it.
and that has happened.
we have,
Well, is it done on purpose?
Who knows?
no,
I don't
I don't think it's done on purpose because I do truly believe there's an effort trying to be made to get to a budget that balances. We're not there yet.
I don't
But-
understand it, I do not understand it.
Okay, but we've been working on this and working on this and working on this.
Right.
December,
And
it's now April.
Okay. What seems to be the problem?
What is the problem?
That they can't balance it.
What is the problem?
It's like,
Reach out.
okay,
So,
The
Ask
problem is
somebody.
the state hasn't given us any money.
No,
Well,
That's part of the problem.
it's part of the, it's the.
you mean for the school,
School.
part, the school,
Yeah.
I take the school out of it, because we did.
We did take the school out of it, yeah.
So we
what
still
is the
have a
problem?
problem with the rest of the budget.
because
Well,
now
exactly.
the money that we're now paying for the school, we have to make up for from the remainder of the town budget. That's what we've been trying to do in the select board has been trying to do.
But Dawn,
For the
didn't that happen last year too? Doesn't it happen that the school does not get the money from the state every year?
That's right.
And we have to go for the override
Okay,
every
so
year?
last year, we level funded the school assessment year over year. So the FY 25 number identically matched the assessment from the FY 24 number with trying to get an override so that we could pay the assessed value that the assessment from the schools. The override failed. And we went forward. We got a new budget from the school. It was a little lower. And the assessment was a little lower, but we still didn't have the money because when we passed a balanced budget, we had the same dollars from FY 24 in the FY 25 budget. So then we got to August of last year. I have to get my dates. And in August, in the annual election in the other towns, they didn't fund the school budget either. So when two of the towns voted down, that's when the school had to come back with a different number. When we got to the August timeframe, Ashby had an override question that failed in their general election in April. They got to August and they paid it out of their operating budget. So that's why it passed Ashby. So Pepperell had passed all along. Ashby then passed it an hour before we started our town meeting. When we started a town meeting, that's when we took all of the trash money, moved it to the school line, paid for the school assessment. And that's what started this whole downhill.
Okay, but even for this time,
Now for this, yeah,
we've already got the schools, even though they came out of free cash and
and
whatever, that piece is done.
that
That's
piece is
fine.
done.
So now we're working on the rest of the budget. Forget about the school.
What's left?
What's left,
Right.
wherever that money comes from.
Yep.
And they still can't seem to figure out,
Enough cuts to count.
well,
the
because
balance.
they won't do the cuts that are necessary. to
Well, that's
that.
the answer right
That's the
there, and
answer.
that's the answer, it's a pick and
Because,
choose.
because the school's
They're
done.
trying to, they're trying to come in with a fine.
I don't think so, I don't
And
think
you
so.
need a bigger, you need a bigger, you need bigger chunks. We need-
I think
Unfortunately,
they're trying to keep who they wanna keep.
and unfortunately, you
Friends.
don't wanna let anyone go, but at this point in time, we have basically no money. We don't have a kitty for rainy day, a rainy day kitty is
Right.
almost
A reserve
gone.
fund,
Yeah, so at this point in time, we need to make those hard cuts.
We do.
And maybe if we can make those hard cuts, build up our kitty, we could maybe bring some people back, but at some point,
You know,
You're gonna have to,
if it has to pass town, you bet it won't pass town.
you know,
Well, but
Well,
We-
you're talking, I've been too many times sat at the table where we sit, you know, and we were whatever against it for whatever reason, you know, it's not right, this has to go. And somebody stood up and, you know, then everybody stood up and then they voted on it and they voted it in, even though it was not recommended at all.
Mhm.
yeah.
That it was, you know, the money needs to go somewhere and much more important than that, but
But we're
no.
gonna be coming to a point in time, whether it's next year or the year after, where there is no money.
Well, then what happens? I mean, that's what I see happening. I mean, that's like forecasting 101.
I mean, it's like,
And those are the pieces, that's why last week I asked, okay, so let's say the override passes this year.
Yeah,
What's it look like next year?
exactly.
well, it's gonna be another override.
But if you don't show people what it's gonna be with the override and without the override. And again, we're looking at trying to cut individuals rather than maybe looking at what departments do we absolutely need to run the town and keep those open and look at the optional ones.
Absolutely, but I don't think that's happening at all.
No,
No.
but that, you know,
Yeah.
is that what we have to do?
Yes.
Is that more,
We, the
is that,
FinCom, or-
Right.
we the FinCom, we the towns, is that what we have to look at rather than trying to cut every department, so there's a shortage of people and the work's
No, I
not
don't
getting
think that's
done?
the answer.
I don't think that's the answer.
No.
And I think you need to come up with that list of what departments do you need to run?
Mhm.
Absolutely, what are the statutory requirements to the state, and what has to be recorded, town clerks, assessors, treasury, you have to collect your money and get it, the
Mhm.
treasury is required. Accountants required because you gotta pay the bills,
Mhm.
it's kind of like, so go
Right,
around,
the necessary to,
what I absolutely require.
like triage.
Yeah,
Potentially, and do the, you know, if we wanna try to come up with, you know, do you wanna keep trash? If you don't wanna keep trash, that might help cut.
Well, so then we do their job. Because it would be so much easier for not only us, but the townspeople,
Right,
if they had given us with the cuts budget. And like they promised us and promised us and promised. Override, no, without the override, the two, and
right.
they
And-
won't give it to us.
And-
they're supposed to tomorrow night. Give it to
No,
the
they
people.
haven't a forum to create total chaos.
Well,
Well, they,
yes, but
my understanding from last week was that their
That's
intention
not
was to
what
do
they
like the
said.
school does when they were announcing it, not say where the cut,
Oh, yeah.
what
I forget
department
about
is
the pipeline.
actually
Oh
getting
my God,
cut,
about that.
but how many cuts.
No,
have to
no,
go.
the
Because they're not gonna tell us what services we're not gonna have. So we're gonna vote on something we don't know.
Because the reason they're doing that is you can't announce it before there's been negotiations with the unions.
What do they negotiate?
No, I think that whole
No,
thing, I think
no,
that's all made
they
up.
negotiated the price, they didn't negotiate who might get laid off. That's the negotiation. We had a job for 600 hours in town hall, that's what they negotiated. Now they have to negotiate, there's gonna be 400 hours in town hall, which means we're gonna lose 200 hours of your union employees. So the negotiation is now, how is the union, you know, what,
John, they've known about this for at least 2 months. Why haven't they gone and just bit the bullet? They made all these horrible rumors and everybody got all scared to death. 20% cut across except family and friends.
In the fall.
What?
Why did they do negotiations in the fall?
but, no, we didn't know the FY 26, we FY 25 was a balanced budget. We didn't need to make those cuts in the fall because there was a balanced budget, and what we did in August with the extra 100,000 from the fire,
receipts.
receipts, they went in, they funded EMS, but that freed up 100,000 in general fund for the rest of it.
But we can't
It's kind of
keep
like-
going to
we-
the ambulance receipts.
No,
the
we
pay.
can't keep going there. There was 136,000 from stabilization, which we thought was gonna be repaid with the
Well,
with the free
you
cash.
forget
Well, that
that.
didn't happen.
No.
Yeah, it's kind of like, so all of these things that were supposed to happen aren't happening. And
Well,
we're
but
at
you're saying the
FY26.
things they wanted to happen. is not
Well,
happening, because the vote on the floor was the people speaking.
So
Well,
why
but-
did they hire, I heard that they just hired three, summer hires or temporary workers.
For water or for cemetery?
I think cemetery or whatever, I mean, did they get along with one? I mean, at this point in time,
Mhm.
I mean, I know there's grass cutting, but can the people that work for the town cut the grass
Less times.
Yeah,
less
Yeah,
times?
less frequently.
Less
It's kind of-
frequently?
I-
mean,
I don't know,
no,
I thought,
mowers,
Summer
if you
and
wait
February.
for the grass gets too long, you just mow it twice that same day, which puts in the same amount of cost. In the end, I use the same amount of gasoline, I use the same amount of time, I've just, instead of doing it last week and this week, I did it this week twice.
You already mowed your grass?
What?
You
Mm.
mowed your grass already?
No, but
Oh,
this is
oh,
what,
oh.
this is, I'm talking about if you said, don't cut it so often,
Yeah.
no, you have to.
and,
okay.
and I think that's what is so difficult about this, is we're trying to be fine tuned and cut individual amounts here and there to try to get to a number of like the number of 640 was, the bottom line, and because this isn't the exact file, it says 734,000.
I thought it was 625.
The 625 is the ask for the override.
It's
The
on
six-
the override.
The 640 was the gap between the revenues
In other
and-
words,
and the budget. So they had to cut another 15,
so.
but that was before they added in this other 61.
But-
So now they have to cut 70,
No,
75, 76.
When they did the override question, I guess they didn't.
They thought, they were at 640 and they thought they could get to 625 easily.
This is what's wrong.
I don't get
Well,
it, yeah.
So they had a number that was in a file and they thought they could reduce it by 15,000 to get to 620.
And oh, whoops, it went up to 700,000 after they thought they could bring it down to 625.
Again, this is not their exact file, so,
And we still don't know how much the snow budget's gonna go up.
Right,
From this
so-
last storm.
yeah, so we need,
Well, the next one
Oh.
we might.
Hey, everybody. This is Cindy. I know you can't see me because you got the screen up. Since you just brought up snow and ice, could I speak?
yeah. I don't know.
Do the
There,
Yeah.
Did Nelson tell you the problem with the snow and ice budget for fiscal year 25?
no.
Okay. I was just in the select board meeting before I came to your meeting on Zoom.
Yeah.
And apparently Nelson reported to the Board of Selectmen that the highway department found a missing invoice. And there's, I can't stop laughing. They found a missing invoice, one of those missing invoices that turn up every now and then. Apparently there's now not enough money in free cash to pay the fiscal
Yeah.
year 25 snow and ice bill. So
Oh, right.
one of their plans is to possibly ask the FinCom to use the reserve fund to fill the gap, or they're going to have to do some kind of creative financing. But this is fiscal year 25. This isn't even before we
Right.
get to fiscal year 26. But this is a plan that they don't have a plan for. Just to let you
Yeah.
know.
Okay, no, appreciate it. It's kind of like,
Tell me what we did.
no, that's an FY 26 thing.
Oh,
This is the 50,000 we have in FY
oh,
25.
they want it. They know it's there and they want it.
Well, they think this is
It's
unforeseen.
highway? Highway.
Well, this is unforeseen.
This is another reason we need the forensic
Well-
audit guy.
They have a missing, but she didn't say how much the missing invoice was for.
Oh,
Cindy, how much is the missing invoice?
I'm not really sure, but they have a need for, apparently it was hard to follow because you know how they are. That
Right.
300,000 needed, and they've only got 290 something in the free cash to use. They've only allocated that much, so they're short. I think that's what the numbers are. I'm not 100% sure because they were going back and forth, but they do not have. It's definite they don't have enough money in free cash to pay
Right.
this invoice.
$300,000 invoice.
well, tell them to take a.
No. I think that's the total snow and ice deficit, and then
Oh.
they don't have with the invoice included.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So I
Yeah,
don't
so
have
we-
the exact invoice number, but they were reporting that the snow and ice, I believe the snow and ice deficit total is 300, but they do not have that much money left in the free cash spending, whatever they were doing with that. But there's just not enough, and Nelson's trying to figure out how to manage it, and going to try to either ask you guys for money from the reserve fund or possibly transfer season when we start the municipal transfers later in the next couple of months. But there
Yeah.
isn't a real plan right now.
Yeah, 2 weeks, we enter the window for that.
Cindy,
But-
does that include this last snowstorm?
I believe, well, it's a missing, I don't know that, well, we just had this last weekend. I don't think that money's in there yet either.
Right.
Unless they already purchased everything. I don't know. I think that still could be coming in because that was
Yeah.
it's a late storm.
Yeah.
That's what I anticipated it to go up from there. I didn't know about the missing invoice, but
Can I do a little creative financing for me?
Oh, wow, Jerry, yeah, let's hear that.
Well, now, and if anybody's listening, I'm all for the fire truck. It has nothing to do with has to do with the fire budget, but not to do with the fire truck. But I want the fire truck.
Caveat emptor.
So anyway, we took 80,000 out of
81,000 out of free
81,
cash.
okay. We took it out, okay, so now, what if we had borrowed that instead of taking it out?
Mhm.
Wouldn't
That-
we have
that
been
would be
better
enough.
off?
Yes,
Then we would have the 81, right?
we would, but that was a motion on town meeting that allocated that 81,000 from free cash. It's kind of like,
Already done it.
no, but with your creator, we need to check, we can maybe go back and ask the,
They're still gonna get paid, I mean, you know.
it is, but we can go back and ask, town council, is it possible to have another warrant article on the special
And to change, from
To
taking
change
out
to change
to
the,
borrow
to
from.
borrow rather
It
than
would
free
give us
cash?
it would give us a little
So-
wiggle room.
Yeah, so in your
Okay. I see
creative,
what you're saying,
yeah,
yeah.
I
creative,
mean,
can something like that happen? I don't know, but trying to just build on your
creative financing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Well,
so-
and then there's the other thing that we brought up and got the big, don't worry about it till it happens answer. When we said if there's gonna be any tariffs that are gonna come on those 2 fire trucks, where are we gonna pull that money out of?
Exactly, yes,
So we're supposed to wait until it happens and then what?
and then do this
Well, I
again.
thought that the 80,000, because we were paying it, which was before the
Tariff hit.
tariffs hit. I don't,
That one may be.
The
but we-
81,000 does not include possible tariffs.
No, that one doesn't, but based on,
oh,
So we're getting the
what we
truck
were-
before those tariffs come in.
Doesn't
Or-
matter,
or-
the tariffs are already in place right now, and you gotta
okay,
pay.
so, but going back to the timing of that, they said all the parts were already in the United States, in Minnesota, where they were gonna assemble it. So there wouldn't be additional
so
tariffs.
they're here.
Tariffs.
so they
So this
hear,
is information from the same company that said that
I-
that it was gonna cost 800,000 and then they popped another
I-
81 grand on. Okay, so
Right.
we believe
So-
them. Mhm.
And,
I got it.
and, the people that told us this information, I have not talked directly to the manufacturer. But-
I'm just saying,
But the
if- what
second truck
happens- what
is a
happens?
later delivery, may have that tariff issue. So what,
But it doesn't matter which one. What do we do?
we're gonna have to go to
with the,
Geraldine's creative reading and say we're planning.
That's like, is that for all the truck? I thought we already borrowed for the truck. So you're saying to add the 81 to
So
the
the
borrow?
81 is to what we owe.
We have to do another borrow.
Or another borrow, because we borrowed the original.
Right.
for it,
we
Right?
We have
borrowed
to
the
borrow the
original
supplemental
part.
amount.
Right, yeah.
And I think that makes
But-
perfect sense.
But now the other part is, we're also in the upcoming borrowing the money for the truck for highway department now, because it was gonna be used out of free cash. But now, or it was gonna move from free cash into capital stabilization, and then capital stabilization was gonna pay for the truck. Now there's no free cash to put into capital stabilization to pay for that truck. So now that truck is gonna be financed.
The
so
highway
The
people.
highway truck.
Well, we certainly need that.
So,
Yeah.
so now.
We really do.
Now we have to work with the treasurer to find out what this is all gonna be and the impact on what is the long-term debt gonna be. Is it gonna hit in FY 26 and is that number gonna change?
And can we carry, are we limited how much a town can carry for debt? Is there a debt ratio that the town?
What happens is it comes out of the tax levy for next year. It doesn't show up so much like in the budget, but the amount that's available in your tax levy is just gonna squeeze the town to where our budget will have to actually go down. The 2.5% raising the budget is a fallacy. That's completely should not be even mentioned, because when you start, our borrowing is really out of control. We're really cutting into our tax levy every time somebody mentions borrowing. I'm not sure that borrowing for anything right now this year is a good idea, and it really frightens me the amount of money that you guys have on the agenda, or the selectmen or capital planning put on the agenda. Because our tax levy number, the starting point for the budget for next year, is drastically impacted, and to keep adding money to the debt load is going to really squeeze us pretty badly. We're not to the point of losing our bond rating, but that increases the interest. But I think our tax levy is really squeezed because we just don't have the new growth. You're not going to see, with all the rate, especially with school budgets going up, the squeeze is on very tight right now. And this is part of the problem that we're having.
If we borrow and increase those long-term debts, it's kind of like, it may look like you can buy more, but you're paying interest on everything.
So going back to Jerry's fire, what happens to the 2 trucks that are being replaced? And do they get sold and we can pop that in?
Not gonna be in much.
Well, if it's 50,000.
Yeah, you can put them on
Gotta be
surplus and
something,
list them
right?
and try to sell
Do
them.
we do that? I mean, is
As
that,
far as I know, we've done it in the past.
I thought did he say that at one of the meetings, the chief there, say something about selling the trucks?
What he said was, what did he say? He said he would include everything that went with the truck, so in order to get a higher price for a truck. But I think that's what we should look into, and maybe Gary does do that, I don't know.
He probably does, but you gotta remember, if you sell the truck this year,
Mhm.
if you sell the truck, let's say you sell the truck in June,
Mhm.
the money for that truck is not gonna be available until free cash is certified in December. If you sell the truck in August, the money for that would not be certified in free cash until the following December, right? Cause I mean, any sales you make, that
Yeah.
money has
Right.
to get certified in
But
free
where does
cash.
that money go to if we do sell a truck like that? Does it go back to the fire department, or does it go back to general
General,
fund?
It would go in,
General
I would think it would go into free cash, which would be,
well,
General fund, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like to be certified for the free cash.
And what about the
Um,
250,000 that we got from the collaboration on the,
I have not looked at the.
We're 250.
the towns, when the show closed?
Oh, yes.
Several towns got
Did we get
together.
that money?
I heard that we had that, we
I
received
believe,
it.
and I believe 2 weeks ago, the
250.
selectmen had it as an agenda item.
250,000?
I have not watched the
How much
video.
was it?
250,000.
Really?
Isn't that our problem?
Doesn't that take care of everything?
Well, not everything.
No,
Most,
but yeah.
But again.
Oh,
it's
yeah, it
kinda like-
does, actually, right, because if we get rid of, we could make the budget balance if we had that 250,000. Right here in the
We-
FinCom
we have-
office.
We have to go back and visit what the select board has voted, with that money where I believe
What are
that,
they gonna tell us, though, you know?
well, it was in their open meeting. You just have to watch the agendas and hit them, but it's
You
kind of
know,
like.
when did we just become,
And I don't wanna be told I have to sit and watch the
Videos, no, I don't
Because
either. It kinda-
When I sat and watched, I don't know,
We were
one of,
told that, by the way.
when I sat and watched one of those selecting videos, I almost wanted to blow my brains out.
oh, no. You know, the thing is, I've been on several finance boards. This is not my first rodeo. And usually what happens is the town really wants to hear how finance feels. I don't think
The town
the town, tell the town people.
Right,
Tell
yeah.
me, they wanna hear what your finance committee. I don't think that's true here.
You don't think the people wanna hear what we have to say?
I think they'd like to hear what we have to say, but I don't think our other portion
Oh,
of.
you're talking about the selectmen not wanting us to make recommendations. I
I
believe
mean,
that's
Well,
100% true.
we make recommendations, but I really think that, we should have a stronger voice of what we do have.
Well, we were told at the last meeting, if you remember, that would be me, that I was too critical.
Well, not only that, you were told that it was their meeting and not.
And it's their budget.
Right.
So it's not the town budget, it's the Board of Selectmen budget according to the Board of Selectmen. That might change things because if it's their budget, maybe the town people don't have to know about their budget.
Right, but
But if it's a town budget,
It's the
the
town
town
budget.
should know about it.
It's a town budget,
It's
it's
the
not the
money
selectmen's
belongs to the
budget.
town.
They made it abundantly clear that it is the Board of Selectmen's budget.
They told us that.
Yes, they did. Several times. So our voice, well, I mean, you see the signs.
I do see the signs.
Yeah.
I think there
I
is a
think
voice
whoever
out
put
there,
those together watches these meetings.
probably.
right, and
would
I
so.
think people, the idea of what makes up the 625 for the override, needs to be identified. And again,
It would be
you know,
nice.
exactly, you know, but, and I don't know that it's not any individual specific lines, it's the overall budget. It's all the lines aggregated together
Right,
come to the 28 million and change. It's
I know,
not like-
but the cuts
And
for
the
the,
revenues only come to 27 million and change, and so the difference is the 640. So it's not any individual revenue line or any individual line item in the
that
budget
creates the number.
that creates the number. It's everything together. It's the total of it all.
But the fiscal responsibility comes by looking at each of those individual items and saying
Or-
what is necessary, what isn't at this
Right.
time.
Right.
And to your other point, last meeting, how do we create new revenue?
Yep.
You know, the negative versus
Henry,
the positive.
yeah.
What are they doing about that? I mean, that's not our job, is it?
No, we're not economic development. Maybe that would be something
I
that,
think they just hired, was it DLTA or
a DLTA grant.
MRP, yeah, something.
Or the
Or
MRPC.
What is that? What are
What are
those
So
initials mean?
they're gonna do some, the grant, that's when you get a grant, they're the people
Oh, a
that.
grant to get more money
So
to
this
build
is-
more things that we don't maintain.
This is, so they just got one for economic development, so they're supposed to be, I think, starting soon to come up with an economic development plan to
Yeah.
grant.
Is this
everything.
costing us anything? Not.
yeah,
No,
Well,
it's
as
a
far
grant.
as I know, it's a grant, so.
Yeah, but it,
I mean,
I mean, it's
it's,
not a study,
It is.
right? It's not $100,000 study, right?
Well, they did that last year with ARPA money.
I mean, it's still your tax dollars,
Right.
but the cost of the town is through the grant,
Mhm.
so,
Right.
so it's a study.
It's a study,
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah.
but yeah.
you
and
get a report at the end,
It's been,
on what they
yeah.
came up with.
It's been a few years, but we did in the master plan, go out and we hired a consultant to do the economic development section.
That costs
Yeah.
us money.
But
And
the
yeah,
other thing is,
that's
but we don't implement anything.
No, we say it, that's what we want, and then when they're, okay,
I mean,
fine.
but
I mean-
that's the piece. It's kind of like, so we can
We have no-
look and see, it's been probably 5 years.
We have
since that
no,
master-
we have no vehicle to get there.
Right.
Right,
Kinda,
right. It's,
So,
it's just like whatever for the federal government. You had to do a plan or a report, and it's set on the shelf until the IGs came. It was supposed to be updated every so often, and
Every
nobody
5
ever
years.
looked at it.
Now,
And
And
look
then,
what
and then,
happened.
and then the IG came and everybody's like scattering to the wind, oh my God, we haven't updated that plan in 10 years, you know? It's like-
And look what happened recently. It's all gone now, all the departments.
okay, so we're
Off topic.
just, that's okay.
No, but the fire, I think the fire issue is important. I think we should,
Well, I think we could look in,
Right.
I mean,
So I think-
nobody wants to borrow money. However, sometimes you have to.
Right,
You just can't take.
but I also
Right.
think that.
and you don't want to borrow money to pay snow and ice.
No, I understand
kinda
that, but
like
I think that when you talk about cuts, I don't think anything, I think the most irresponsible statement I've heard so far is no cuts to X, Y, and Z without even seeing the budget, because that happened before we even had the meeting.
Right.
And to not know what you're saying no to is,
Yeah, I mean, in that, I don't have a problem with the borrowing, it's just, I don't know if there's like a limit to what the town can, borrow without.
When you start borrowing and you have a large amount of debt, it gets to the bond rating and
And then you pay
then you
more,
pay
right?
more, yeah.
But they don't like you not to borrow either. They like you to borrow.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, yeah.
but then
no.
it comes the part where you have to have the money to pay it.
Right, and,
Well, of
and no,
And if you don't have that,
right,
and you don't pay, then a whole other consequence happens.
yeah,
Yeah,
so we'll,
I mean,
Or you pay it and this piece of the puzzle that's being paid gets bigger and bigger, which means the other piece has to get smaller and smaller, like reducing the government itself. And where we, I think we were talking about reducing the government a
$80,000
while ago.
foreign budget,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe we could, do
pay it off in a year,
or two.
yeah, or two, yeah, okay. The
Cause I,
payments wouldn't be that big then.
no, they
probably.
really, no.
They
no,
shouldn't be.
and
not
Melissa
like-
gave us the little piece.
She kind of said that was really the way to go.
She did say
Um,
that actually at the meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right,
Or
but,
what?
to borrow the
Borrow, should
80,000.
have been a borrow.
Oh.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think she did. So,
but I didn't know if she was gonna bundle it with something else, because you can take that 80,000 bundle.
Well,
it
maybe
with
she
the-
was gonna bundle it with the, these
Right,
pickup truck.
or-
I mean,
but if
not the
you're doing
pickup
it short-
truck,
but
but
if-
the
Highway
truck.
the highway truck.
the
or something.
dumpster or
I don't know.
whatever it was.
Well, the highway truck wasn't on the table at that point.
Oh,
It-
No, it was that capital plan. I don't
Yeah.
even know what's happening.
But,
it kinda- So,
But he, but his
okay,
material really is.
right. Yeah, okay.
Are we gonna have another meeting after the chaos meeting?
we probably should. When-
Yeah, we probably
when-
should after the,
When do we think we can,
When we had to meet again?
when do we
well,
want
we probably need to discuss the fallout from the
Yeah.
override
It's
that
kinda
doesn't
like-
pass.
So I think we should probably have the meeting at the Townsend House in the bar.
That would work for me.
Well, it probably doesn't work for the open meeting law.
Yeah, probably not.
We could call him.
Why can't we call a meeting, do we have to call a meeting in room 2 all the time?
No, this
No,
was
but-
because.
But it has to be recorded and
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Call Cindy King,
Delete
she
you
can
and be
record for
recorded.
us.
It's kinda-
Recorded at the townhouse.
Oh, yeah, we don't need to
We
record.
can do, we can do your remote, the remote meetings have been, remote only meetings have been extended to 2027.
mhm.
Thank you, Lord.
So, hybrid meetings were always gonna be allowed, but it's kind of like fully remote meetings are still, have been extended. They were signed by the governor. So that's all good to keep tabs on for that. But I was just looking at this and we have do we want to meet after, the budget presentation and before the vote, or are we gonna?
Oh, no, I think we should, and I think we should meet after the budget presentation, before the April 28th meeting, or whatever day it is.
Okay, yep.
And I think we should solidify what our recommendations are to the town, so that we can get up and present them.
so that'd be next Tuesday.
That's
Um,
Tuesday the 22nd, right?
Next
that what it
Tuesday,
is?
the 22nd, if that works for everybody, or
I think
24th.
That's our normal day.
We've been meeting on Tuesdays.
Yeah,
so,
Tuesdays usually,
you know,
I don't have to drive kids around
Yeah.
town.
yeah,
Tuesday, April
I know.
22nd.
By
I
that,
already had it down. I don't know why.
so,
so the
Plan,
next
that's all.
Tuesday,
I will reach out to TCAM and see,
What time is it gonna be?
is the 7 better, or? just the
6 is
first
better, I
I
think.
think it's better. I think
Better,
six is
yeah.
better.
Okay.
Because then it only goes to 9 to get.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I have steak that's waiting for me.
Okay.
Oh, well, hey, thanks for inviting us all.
It-
Oh, I didn't.
He took a slice off the horse.
Oh.
Oh, you haven't had anything until you've had horses.
I'm kidding, I
It was
was.
delicious.
Even the McDonald's too, I tell you.
Okay, we've been here
Yeah, we didn't wait too
I would
long.
make a motion that we adjourn
at,
at, what is it?
9 p.m.
9 p.m.
April, what is the next one?
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I.
Damn.
Aye.
Okay.